talk to your soul, because there are times when everybody leaves you. There are a lot of us who in some ways are like this crystal merchant, because we define our life by one thing. Don't confine your identity, your self-worth, your value to just one thing. That is what the crystal merchant is doing here. The fear of what people would think about us, because we think that we are up here and now we are down here. Hello there, and once again, you are welcome to our personal development class. My name is Dr. Osei Kranting, and we continue from where we left off, gleaning lessons from the all-time classic, the book The Alchemist by Paul Coelho. And today we start off with a passage from page 216. And it says, "Now it was too late to change anything. The only thing he had ever learned to do was to buy and sell crystal glassware." This is the glassware merchant's thinking, that at this time in his life it was too late to do anything. The only thing he had ever learned to do was to buy and to sell crystal. And this line is telling us about a man who has boxed himself into a narrow identity. He believes that he has just one skill in this life, and there's nothing more to add to it. There's nothing more that he can do with his life. He has defined his entire worth by one thing. And there are a lot of us who in some ways are like this crystal merchant, because we define our life by one thing. For example, you are a wife, or you are a pastor, or you are a doctor, and that is all you have focused your life on. You have not made that time to explore and develop the other areas of your life. And so for you, your relevance comes from just one thing. You are Mrs. Akatahina, enjoying the accolades that come from being the wife of an affluent man. And that is all you have developed your life to be. You have narrowed your life into one box, one role. Or you are a pastor, and that is all you have ever done. Nothing else to add to it. And even when life begins to change, even when the circumstances of your life begin to shift, you still hold on to that identity. It's like, I'll die in my shoe, I'll die in my shoes. You don't want to begin to look outside the box, to begin to go beyond the self-inflicted cage you have created for yourself, to look at other possibilities. Yes, I have been a pastor all my life. Yes, I've been a housewife for 20 years and not done very much else with my life. But life is beginning to change, and I probably should learn a new skill. I probably should venture into some other area, because this one that I've built my life on is slowly beginning to lose its relevance. Don't confine your identity, your self-worth, your value to just one thing. That is what the crystal merchant is doing here. Instead of saying that this is all I am, me say ya na me tie, me maame wo me ochire me etie bo ntie no na me nim ye nti se me ntumi mboti bioma ene ehwe ne ho a meti. No, you can't say that. Instead of saying that this is all I am, why don't you ask yourself, what else can I be? What else can I do? What else can I offer? There is always an opportunity for us to reinvent ourselves. And that is where we know that you are open to growth. You are open to change. You are open to making your life better than it has always been. And this attitude of the merchant, where he's talking about this is all I've ever known, this is all I've ever done, it's a lack of courage to reimagine yourself. And so when you don't have that courage to think that, okay, although this is the kind of work I've done all my life, maybe there's a possibility that I can learn marketing. There is a possibility that I can leave this job and go start my own business. There's a possibility that even if this marriage fails, my life has not come to an end. I can make something out of my life. The lack of courage for you to imagine that you are no longer going to be called Mrs. Akatahina. You are no longer going to be able to live in that mansion and have that kind of life you had. You can't imagine anything else besides what you've always been. That is what puts you in that cage where you tell yourself that, but I don't know what else to be. I don't know what else to do. I don't know what, I don't have anything else to give. It is a lie. And it is a lie that comes from a lack of courage to reinvent yourself, to reimagine yourself, to rebuild your life back up when all you have ever known and been used to is gone or being lost. And this kind of mindset is a fear mindset. It comes from the place where you are afraid of beginning all over again. You are afraid of losing relevance because where you've always been, people know you, you have a certain clout, you are the boss, people respect you, you give command and people are running helter-skelter. But there comes a time when you get to that junction where you have to reinvent yourself. All those privileges that you used to enjoy, you get it's lost. Imagine being the managing director of a very successful company and you've decided that at 45 you are going to go on an early retirement and begin your own business. And so suddenly you are starting your own business. Nobody is calling you, yes, a master. Nobody is picking your calls for you. Nobody is driving you. Now you are your own boss. You are starting a small business. It's a small building somewhere. You are the person who is driving. You are the receptionist. You are the cleaner. Because I've been there before. I started the business and I was all of these things, receptionist, cleaner, everything. And so sometimes the fear of we losing relevance or the fear of we having to start from scratch, the fear of what people will think about us because we think that we were up here and now we are down here. That is what keeps us from stepping outside of the box that we have created for ourselves. But guess what? It does not matter. It is none of anybody's business. What matters is the faith you have in yourself, that you can turn your life around, that you can reshape your destiny, that you can make a painful U-turn and come back to the beginning, start a new journey, and still make something beautiful out of the life you have left. Until you are dead, until God has snapped out the last breath in you, there is always a chance to start over. Moses actually started his ministry at the age of 80 years. In his earlier life, he was living in the palace as Pharaoh's grandson, and then he had to flee Egypt. He became a shepherd for many years. Can you imagine at 80 years? That is when God finally called him and asked him to go back to Egypt and ask Pharaoh to let his people go. That was how late it was in the day when Moses had to change direction. Are you more than 80? And even if you are, I don't think it matters. A lot of us feel that all we need to do is to survive. We just need to have food on our table. We need to have clothes on our back, a place to sleep. Once you have that barest minimum, we are okay. We don't want to venture out. We don't want to rock the cradle too much. We don't want to grow. The comfort is okay. We choose comfort over growth. But that is not a winner mentality. If you want to play it safe, survival is not a good word. If you are in survival mode, you are at the bottom of the pyramid. If you are at comfort zone, you are a little higher than survival, but it is not good enough. If you really want to be all that God created you to be, if you want to fulfill purpose, if you want to make a difference, touch the lives of people beyond the ones you are responsible for, then you need to get out of survival mode. You need to leave the country of comfort and you need to venture into the wilderness of growth, where there are risks, where it is unpleasant, where there are uncertainties. And whenever there is change, whenever you stand at the threshold of change, that is where we expose who you really are. Page 228. It was as if the world had fallen silent because the boy's soul had. He sat there, staring blankly through the door of the cafe, wishing that he had died and that everything would end forever at that moment. It was as if the world had fallen silent because the boy's soul had. He sat there staring blankly through the door of the cafe, wishing that he had died and that everything would end forever at that moment. This was when the crystal merchant told the boy that even if he worked for him for a whole year, he would still not have enough money to buy his flock back and to go back where he had come from. And at that point, it felt like the boy's world literally came crashing down. This moment is not about a physical death. It is an emotional shutdown. It is where the writer says that the world has fallen silent because the boy's own soul had also fallen silent. His inner life, his hope went quiet. He became dumb. And at that point, desire will stop speaking. I don't know about you, but I have been in that place before, more times than one, when there are so many disappointments happening at the same time that my soul was overwhelmed and I had to pull the emergency brake and remain stuck in that painful moment where the pain and the disappointment is so much that I wished at that time, at that point, that I did not exist. I wish at that time I was dead. I wish that the ground would open up and swallow me up. Just about a week ago, I was in that kind of place where so many disappointments from somebody I held so dear to my heart happened at the same time. And when the reality of what was happening hit me, I became numb. Just like, what is happening with you? And at that point, your soul becomes quiet. Every desire in you dies. Your life goes numb. And every hope. And the thought that everything should just end. I just want this to end. It's not really a desire to die or to disappear, but it is your inner man, your soul crying for rest or respite from the pain you are feeling at that moment. And this is a language that is literally saying that I can't carry this anymore. This is too much for me. I need to get out of this place. I need help. And this is a very well recognized human response to great loss or disillusionment. When some you never imagine you would be at that place. You never imagine that you are going to lose this particular person or thing. And so when it happens to you, everything collapses. And at that material moment, silence follows. And sometimes we say that you are in a state of shock and you feel like your future and everything from that moment forward is completely closed up, lost, a hopeless cause. But I want to assure you that no matter how real, no matter how raw, no matter how tangible and palpable this state of emotional shutdown is, the good thing is that it is never permanent. It is always. I remember in the Bible, Elijah, 1 Kings 19, there was a story about Elijah. He was at that same place. In verse 3, the Bible says that Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Bathsheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it and prayed that he might die. When you are in that place, sometimes you would wish that you just die. And he said to the Lord, I have had enough, Lord. Take my life, take my life. That is that point where your soul shuts down, where the disappointment and the pain seems unbearable. And you think that losing it, dying, is the easiest option. But at that point, that is where God steps in. That is where he brings you rest. Like Elijah, he gave him food. He spoke gently to him. And then he asked him. And when people are at that place where their life is literally collapsing around them, the spectators around, what we need to do to help this person, that is not the time to condemn them. That is not the time to tell them, say me catch you say papa we onye onfa unkosi baby. Say me catch you say girl yo yen kran onye ni papa kran fo onye ni papa. Because somebody said that to me. People would condemn you at the time when you are down. But there's a better way to do it. When people are at that place where their whole world has come crashing down, where they are disillusioned and disappointed and afraid and lonely. Yes, they may not have listened to your advice. Yes, they may not have taken the right decision. But at that time, what we need to do is to meet them with care and compassion and with love. Sometimes you may not get anybody to meet you with that kind of care or compassion or love. But look at David in Psalm 42, verse 5. Why, my soul, are you downcast? Why so disturbed within me? You need to come to that place where you can talk to your soul. Talk to your soul. You need to sit yourself down and talk to your soul. Yes, Rosamond, this has happened to you. Yes, this person left you. Yes, this person stole from you and called you names and turned it against you. Yes, this person is going around and saying you are insane. Yes, all these things are happening. That is the reality. But are you going to allow that to weigh you down? Are you going to allow yourself to sink into the quagmire of despair? No. Sometimes you need to set your soul down. Oh, my soul, do you not know? Have you not heard? It's been said from the beginning, the Lord your God is on your side. Oh, my soul, don't be afraid. Rejoice in the Lord. By his righteousness and mercy, he will lead you, he will guide you, and you will soar on wings like eagles. held by the hand of God. You will run and you will not be weary. You will walk, you will not be tired. Talk to your soul, because there are times when everybody leaves you and there's nobody to talk to you. Talk to your soul. Encourage yourself in the Lord. And no matter how bad it looks, eventually God is going to come to your rescue. It happened to Job. He became so desperate. There was so much despair in Job's soul. When you read Job 19, the things he said, this was a man whose heart was broken and shattered. And yet, eventually, God came through for Job and restored him and made him better than he was. Job was dishonest and expressed displeasure at how he felt that God was unfair to him. He said all kinds of things. But God did not use his honesty against him. Because God knows that as human beings, when we are pushed to the limit sometimes we tend to say things against God that we do not mean. We tend to say things to people that we do not mean. But it is because you are at that place where your soul is crushed, and God will eventually come through for you. When the time is right, God will come through for you. And God pardons us when we are in that place and we are not thinking straight. And when the pain is speaking louder than our conscience, when the voice of pain is louder than the voice of reason, God is compassionate enough. And in this context, the boy becoming silent at that point is not the end of him. When people get to that place where they are in shock, where they are disillusioned, where there are so many disappointments that keeps them crushed and silent, there must have been a choice you made. There must have been somebody you took along. There's always something that was not right in the first instance that brought you to that point where your soul shuts down. And so this time you realize that you can start over, but it must be done differently. And there are times when the starting over is such that you are not just doing things differently, but you are building something deeper and more meaningful, more purposeful. And so anytime you come to this place of extreme shock, it is only for a moment until you regain your composure. It is just an emergency break. It is not a full stop. It is a comma. It is just a chapter that you close and start another one. It is not the end of your story. Page 232. But he stayed with the job because the merchant, although he was an old grouch, treated him fairly. The boy received a good commission for every piece he sold, and he had already been able to put some money aside. The boy stayed on the job because the merchant, although he was an old grouch, he was somebody who was not very pleasant to live with, he would insult you, he would say things that would demoralize you. He stayed because the grouch, the merchant, treated him fairly. He received a good commission for everything he sold. And business was so good that he had been able to save some money. The boy was doing this job not because he loved the job. No, he didn't love it. He didn't love the way his boss treated him, the way his boss talked down on him. Sometimes his boss would talk at him when there are customers there. Even when it's not his fault, the boss would blame him. So he didn't like the job. But he stayed because the boss, although he was a grouch, was a fair person. He was a fair person. He paid him properly for his work. He earned commission for every piece he sold, and he was paid appropriately. He had even started to save money. And this tells you that although the job was not a joyful place for the boy, it was honest work and it was useful to him. How many of you are in jobs or have been in jobs where it was not all perfect? And some of us make the mistake of angrily leaving the job because there's one part of the job that is not pleasant. But you forget that although you are not happy there, you are making a good living, you are able to take care of your wife and children, you are able to save, you are able to go to school. The job is helping you to do certain things in your life. And so you don't look at how your boss is or how somebody treats you at work and then you just leave the job. It's an honest job. It is well paying. It is painful. The way the person treats you can be demoralizing sometimes. But you need to understand that there are stations in your life which are just transition points. That job is not your destination. It's not your end. It's just a means to an end. There was a time in my life where I was working for other people, my bosses who had gone ahead of me and were doing the business I'm doing now. And I worked in places where I was not treated fairly. I worked in places where they treated me like my other colleagues were better than me. I went through all kinds of terrible treatment, very subtle, but obviously, if you are somebody like me, you would know all kinds of discrimination. But I stayed and I worked and I learned and I applied myself to the job and I loved the patients and I gave the job my everything. Because although I was not treated fairly sometimes, although I was treated less of a human being than other people, I knew that I needed the money. My children needed me to pay their fees. There were things I needed money for. My family depended on me. And I was learning, I was practicing my skill, I was getting better. I was learning how to talk to patients, I was learning how to gain feedback, I was learning how to relate with cleaners, with receptionists. I was learning all those things and enduring the unfair treatment that the job came with. It wasn't until years later, when I had my own business, that I realized that all the difficult times I went through in that state also came with discipline. It came with learning and it came with preparation for something that God had in store for me in the future. So can you imagine if I had become emotional about it and let my emotions be bigger than my brain? Let my heart be bigger than my brain and left the job. Can you imagine what I would have lost? The boy is patient in this place. He's not quitting the job just because the merchant was a difficult person, but he was being practical. He was saying that, look, this job is helping me to save money. I'm not wasting it, I'm saving it. And this is where you become mature, where you are patient, you are practical, and you make decisions based on meaning, meaning, not your emotions or what feels good. And the moment you recognize this kind of scenario and you choose wisdom over pride, because when you are in a place where you are not being treated fairly, sometimes it kills your pride. It is not even about work alone. There are some of you in certain relationships that are even supposed to be the highest and most sacred kind of like a marriage. And your husband or wife is treating you terribly, terribly. But you are staying on. You are putting your pride aside and you are staying on because you know that although you don't really get any good reward from being a wife to this man, he is providing for you. He's providing for your children. Your children are going to good schools. You have a good life. He's giving you a car. He may not be the best husband, but it is something you know that You don't have a lot of earning power. And if you decide to walk out of this marriage today because it's so bad today, and you want to take your children along, one, you may not have a place to say. You're going back to your parents' house where there are like 6 of you in one room. Your children may not have the privilege of going to that international school that they are going to now. The kind of society that you are mingling with, you may not have it. And so, in as much as it looks really bad, the man may be some way, he doesn't talk to you nicely, you don't just get up and leave the marriage. The marriage may not be your destination, it's only a means. I'm not preaching leaving your marriage. I'm talking about how you live in imperfect situations, because that is the best thing to do at the time. You overlook some things because some other aspects are better. And if it is such that it is so bad and you have to go, then you give yourself time to put yourself together to the point where when you leave this unpleasant circumstance, you will not suffer much. Because by the time you are leaving, you have saved enough to buy back your flock. You have saved enough to build a house. You have saved enough to start a business. You have saved enough to travel out of Ghana and go start a new life somewhere. You don't need to love a situation in order for that situation to be useful to you. Sometimes fair treatment or the benefit, a particular benefit you get from the situation is more important than the things you are looking for that you are not getting. And temporary endurance can fund you a future freedom. And so you are enduring the unpleasant work circumstances today just so that you can save enough money, go to school, get a degree that you never had, get the masters you never had, learn a skill you didn't have before, and come back onto the job market a better person. But until then, you don't have the resources. So all you have to do is to continue being a receptionist or to continue being a security man in order to gather funds to go back to school and build the life that you want. I would like to build a display case for the crystal. The boy said to the merchant, we could place it outside and attract those people who pass by at the bottom of the hill. I've never had one before, the merchant answered. People will pass by and bump into it, and pieces will be broken. So here the boy has come up with a new and brilliant idea. Let's build a case, let's put it outside where people can see it to attract more customers. Then we'll sell more crystal and make more money. And that tells you that the boy is somebody who is thinking ahead, forward thinking, creative, trying to improve his business, trying to improve his life. And unfortunately, the merchant who is the boss or the older person here gave a response that was purely based on fear. I've never had one before. People will bump into it, things will break. All he's saying is that although the idea is not a bad one, oh boy, the change feels too risky. So why don't we just keep things as they are? I mean, the problem, they say, the boy is seeing possibility. The merchant is only seeing danger and all the things, the 101 things that could possibly go wrong. So this scenario is describing a mindset clash. There are two kinds of people here, the boy and the merchant. There are these kinds of people who are open to growth. They believe that problems can be managed. Although they understand that it may involve some risk, they know that this problem can be managed. And then there's this other group of people who are so comfortable with how things are. They will focus on all the things that can go wrong and how we can lose the business entirely. And they have so much fear And the fear of loss block potential gain. The fear of loss paralyzes them into inaction, and they don't want to do anything. There's nothing wrong with being a cautious person. Nothing wrong with it. I'm a very cautious person. For every step I take, I look at all the things that could go wrong, but the caution should not rule you so completely that it's it stops you. It stops your growth. Yes, it's true. The crystals can break. The merchant is not wrong. Ecclesiastes 10:9 says that whoever quarries stones may be injured by them. If you quarry stone, by all means, some of it will cut you. But it doesn't mean that because some of the stone will cut you, you shouldn't go and quarry stone and find money for yourself or for your family. The Bible knows and acknowledges that there are risks. But the fact that there are risks does not mean that you should not act. You should put your two hands in between your thighs and be sitting there. The Bible teaches us to manage risk, not to live in the paralysis of fear. Growth would always come with risk, but fear would exaggerate the possibility of loss. It will minimize the gain you get from the adventure. And so the merchant wants his shop just to survive, but the boy is thinking about expansion. I believe that we have learned a few important lessons in today's presentation. We'll pause here. I hope that you find time to really ponder over these nuggets. And I'll see you in our next podcast. God bless you.